came out and said that Fani Willis needs to dismiss the YSL case. And that would actually be one of the first official acts that I do should I be elected. If you look at the history of this case, and this is for people who don't know, the Young Thug, the RICO case, the other RICO case besides the Trump case that's going on with the rapper Young Thug. This case has been going on for 3+ years. It's been the longest case in Fulton County history.
Welcome to the Janelle King Show. You are joining us on YouTube, Rumble, wherever you're listening. You may be listening to a clip of this on the radio. However, this is part of our Candid conversation series, more like our Candid conversations, as I'm interviewing candidates who are making a splash, who are doing things, who are just kind of moving and shaking. You know, particularly those candidates that sometimes the media doesn't want to interview because they're a little afraid. But anyway, today, we have my good friend, Miss Courtney Kramer, who is running for Fulton County District Attorney against Fani Willis. And God knows we need Fani Willis gone. So that being said, Courtney, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Janelle, so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you and just to get the message out there about this campaign.
Absolutely. Well, let's just start with some of the basic stuff. You know, one of the things that I know people don't understand is what is the purpose or the role of the district attorney. So I kind of want to start a little bit there, and then we're going to go into your background. So if you could just share your explanation, what is the role of a district attorney?
So what I've explained on the campaign trail to people who ask that exact question, and a lot of people don't really know. They're like, oh, they're just the DA, you know, they prosecute crimes. Yes, they prosecute crimes. They prosecute your felonies in the county. And just for a little history, a little background. So Georgia, you know, we have 159 counties, but it's broken up in judicial districts. So we have 50 judicial districts, but Fulton County is so large, it is its own district. So your southern counties and your northern counties in Georgia, they have about 4 or 5, some have 8 counties assigned to one DA. But Fulton is so large. You know, the largest county in the state, I'm pretty sure at this point. And, you know, so it's its own. So you are overseeing all of the felony crimes that are occurring in Fulton County. And the most basic level, you are a truth seeker. You are you're administering justice to victims for which crimes have occurred. So that's kind of what I explain to people. And you are making sure that, you know, your streets are safe, your communities are safe. You are putting the bad guys away. You are there to put the bad guys away and keep the good guys, you know, safe. So that's kind of what I explain what a DA does.
That's actually a really good explanation because it sounds you put it in layman's terms, right? Oftentimes when we talk to attorneys, it's like, oh my God, you're using jargon we don't understand. So you're able to put it in layman's terms. So that's perfect. Now, who's Courtney Kramer? For those who are watching who don't know you and don't have the privilege of being able to call you friend, can you share a little bit about yourself, your backstory, and just so that people can get to know you a little better?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I will, you know, it's no secret that I'm young. I'm 31 years old. I think I'm probably the youngest candidate to ever probably run for DA in Fulton County, I would venture to say. I'm born and raised in Georgia, born and raised in Fulton County, up in Alpharetta. Went to Milton for high school, went to college out in Milledgeville, Georgia College and State. And then I came back to Atlanta and went to Emory for law school. And I think that while I was at Emory, that was kind of like my formative years of defining, you know, who I was, what I want to do with the rest of my life and my career. I worked in the Office of White House Counsel under President Trump between my second and third year of law school, which was a absolute honor and privilege to do so. So I got to learn a little bit about politics, obviously being in there. It's not really political in nature, but then after that, I came back, finished law school, moved to DC for about a year. Worked for a nonprofit, First Amendment, not constitutional law nonprofit up there, the American Center for Law and Justice, and then came back here during the 2020 election cycle. And that's kind of how, you know, I met you. I met a lot of these key players, the movers and shakers in Fulton County and Georgia alike. And I think that a lot of that kind of kickstart my career into not politics, but the law and, you know, fighting for what is right and putting myself in a position where I see there being, you know, a need, like running for DA against Fani Willis.
Right. And I'm pretty sure this wasn't on your bingo card at one point in time because you know, Fani she just started, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start when it comes to Fani, but I'm sure we're gonna get into that. But how did you move from, you know, just kind of working along, being a lawyer and doing your thing, and then saying, you know what, I think I need to run for office?
So like I said, it was definitely around like the 2020 cycle, and just during that presidential election. And I got really interested in local politics. I got really interested in how these people get elected. And then you start seeing, especially when Fani was elected, when she beat Paul Howard, because he was in that position for, you know, years and years and years. It was just interesting to see the lack of qualified, in my opinion, the lack of not necessarily qualified candidates, but the lack of people who, once they get elected, the lack of them doing their job and doing their job only to seek higher office. And in my head, you know, and I'm a little bit new to politics, but you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to serve your constituents for what you're elected for in that moment in time, in that time of your life. And I have just seen that occurring across the board, you know, on both sides of the political aisle, but particularly in Fulton County, because that is where I'm born and raised. I'm born and raised here. I've lived here for 31 years. And so once I started to see the lack of, you know, I guess justice that was occurring, or, you know, wasn't occurring in Fulton County, and started looking into Fani Willis and what she was doing with her administration in the DA's office, I kind of saw that need, that this was the right race at the right time, and having a passion just to, you know, wanting to go out and walk in Buckhead, or go on a run in Midtown, or whatever it may be, and no one feels safe there. And that is not how, like I said, you're supposed to protect your community as DA, and, you know, be a advocate for your victims. And I think I saw that need, that we really need a change in Fulton County. And so that's kind of what jumpstart this job, I guess.
So traditionally, Fulton County, particularly for those who are, you know, watching from areas that's not in the Georgia area, you know, traditionally Fulton County was highly Democrat, and, you know, they're very big on minority and social issues and all that type of stuff. But I think it's important to point out that when we're talking about, you know, law, we're talking about crime, we're talking about your personal safety, I don't think, you know, your race or the color of your skin or your gender or any of that should matter. You need to make sure that you're supporting someone who has the ability to do the job, and who's looking at every situation as a unique situation that needs to be addressed and handled, and not someone who's driving, you know, a lot of social issues. Thank you so much for joining the show. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you'll be notified every time I upload new content. Now back to the discussion. So, you know, as I was saying, I really think that, you know, when we start focusing in on the stuff that doesn't matter the most, which is, you know, race, or, you know, whether or not you're connected to the community, and as far as the Black community, all of that stuff, when you start trying to make that the focal point, and we're talking about crime, you're really heading in the wrong direction. So can you share a little bit about Fulton County thus far, the current state of the climate in Fulton County, as it relates to cases and things that you've heard?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've said a couple of these stats in a couple of interviews I've done previously, and I'll share them with you as well. So one of the main problems we have in Fulton County, which is what Fani Willis originally pledged that she would help fix, was the backlog of cases that occurred during COVID and during Paul Howard's time in the office. We have a large backlog of cases. Particularly, we have a large backlog of untested rape kits. We have about 4,000 untested rape kits in Fulton County, about 14,000 unindicted felonies in Fulton County. That number, obviously those numbers are flexible the last year or so, but just to give you an idea, that should never happen. Especially not when we have the largest county, probably one of the largest budgets from our Board of Commissioners, and in addition to the grant money we get federally, and the money we get from, you know, the state and local government. We should not be having a backlog of cases at all in Fulton County. You know, that's going to happen naturally, of course, but 4,000 untested rape kits, so that's 4,000 victims who, you know, are languished and don't know, you know, justice is not served on them. That shouldn't happen. Consistently in Fulton County, what we've seen the last couple of years, and it's been very, very public with a lot of the Senate hearings that you guys have seen, you know, Fani Willis continuously asks for more money for her budget. she needs money to hire new ADAs or get rid of the backlog of cases. Problem is that we've now have found out, once Ashley Merchant, the lawyer in the Trump lawsuit, filed a bunch of open records requests, she kind of found that that money was not being spent and used for what it was requested to be used for. That's a huge problem. And there's not really oversight on that once that office gets that money. So as everybody knows, Fani Willis went and instead of hiring 30 new assistant DAs, she instead went and hired her special prosecutor, Nathan Wade, and paid him upwards of, I guess, about $900,000, thus far that we know of. That's insane. That's crazy. That's not transparent. That's not, that's not advocating for the constituents in Fulton County at all. It's advocating for yourself. And so I think having your personal life involved in your work life and your professional life is just so inappropriate, especially in this role, in this job. Fulton County has made a mockery across the world, actually. So not just in Georgia, but definitely across the country. And that shouldn't be the case. Like I said, it is the largest county in Georgia. We have the most resources. We should be the safest county. We should be the most efficiently run county. We have all of the resources at our fingertips and at our disposal, and it's not being used that way currently. And I'll say this because I like to say this as well, but being an elected official is a privilege. It's not a right. And as with anything in life, when you abuse that privilege, it gets taken away. And so I think that me qualifying and being the Republican nominee for this position, I think that's exactly what I hope that resonates with people. That just because you were elected one time doesn't mean you're going to be elected again. Especially in a role, and I think this is pretty, I think you and I both know this, but the DA should not be a political position. You are literally there to put bad guys away. Like there's no way, there's just no reason for this to be as political as it has become at all. And I think that, that's one of the reasons why I'm running, and I hope people realize I want to get that back on track. It should never be this, theater show that it's become at all. You don't see that across Georgia or in other states. So right now, in Fulton County, we do have, we have a massive backlog. We have, resources that we don't know where the money's going. We don't know what it's being used for. We're not being told the truth at all. There's absolutely no transparency. And I think if anything right now, transparency is probably the number one issue on a lot of voters' minds going into November.
You made a lot of great points. And I think it's important to note that if you're watching and you live in Fulton County, the money that, that Courtney's talking about is money that you've paid into. These are tax dollars that we're talking about, right? So this is not Fani's money. This is your money. And you have a right to have your money well budgeted, to have it well spent, and to ensure that it's actually benefiting you as a taxpayer. And that this is your right. And so when you're going to the polls and you're like, okay, I need to vote for someone who I can trust, someone that I know is going to do the responsible thing, that's what this is about. I was talking to a couple of people the other day, and I just said, this election cycle, regardless from president all the way down, it really is based on we the people. We have some major choices to make. If you are someone who typically voted for Fani because you're like, oh, she's a Democrat, or she's a Black woman, or I think I know her, or this is what we do in Fulton County, this is the year that you put all that to the side and you start looking at the platforms, put it side by side and say, hey, who do I feel is going to do the job and do it correctly? That's where we are these days. So that being said, Courtney, what would you say are some of your key or priorities as you're going into this role?
Yeah, Janelle. So kind of what I just a little bit discussed, reducing the backlog in Fulton County is huge. Accountability and transparency. And what I mean by that, making sure that the people in Fulton County know exactly where their taxpayer dollars are going and what they're being used for. And not just once it's requested or once it's budgeted, but once it's been allocated, where it actually did go. Having that be open to the public, responding to the open records request regarding that kind of information, that has got to happen. You got to have the constituents trust who their elected official is, especially in a role that is as important as the district attorney. Making sure, that we are restoring ethics back into our office. I think making sure that also this is a big ticket item. I believe it should be is the jail deaths and just the conditions of the jail in Fulton County.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a whole different podcast, of course, you know that. But making sure what we're doing, and that, you know, kind of contributes to the backlog. We've got to make sure that not just the people in the office are doing their jobs, but everybody else surrounding the office is doing their jobs. We've got to make sure that we are, you know, using our resources wisely, and that the people that are in the jail, that we're putting them where they should be placed, whether it's a, you know, whether we do a different kind of accountability court or something. You know, not everybody in there needs to be there or stay there. You've got to find different ways to rehabilitate these offenders, and that would eventually make sure that, you know, we reduce the crime in the county once these offenders are released back into the public, but also just in the jail itself. Alone, we've seen these jail deaths. They're violent jail deaths. You know, the inmates, you know, they fight, they do lots of horrific things to each other. That doesn't necessarily need to be the case, and it shouldn't be. I think that also, you know, one of my platforms is going, well, not one of my platforms, but ensuring and letting the people know that I'm going to be, and I'm currently forming a transition team. So, you know, if I do have the privilege to be elected to this position, that the people of Fulton County are going to know that there are going to be competent, you know, professional, experienced people coming into that office with me, not people that I'm going to be using to, you know, climb the political ladder, which is exactly what Fani did when she got into office. And I think that, you know, every year we've got to hold these people accountable. So, you know, when Fani ran for office, she made all these promises and she had her platform, just as, you know, like I do. But intermittently, we need to go back to those statements and say, hey, where are we now? Have you done this? Have you reduced that backlog? Have you, you know, made documents, you know, transparent for people who are asking for them? How is the jail, you know, going? You know, do we have less crime on the streets? All of those things need to be a priority. And I think that having that kind of check and balances system, you know, in the office is 100% necessary going forward.
No, that sounds great. And it's funny, it sounds like you were talking about like diversion programs and making sure that you look at every case, like I said, on a unique level, because not everyone is supposed to be sitting in prison. And I know that as I sit on the Board of Corrections and for the state. So while you'll be looking at the county prisons, when I look at our state, we have a prison called the Metro Reentry that does phenomenal work. And I did a tour. And while I was doing the tour there, it was quite interesting because the tour showed me that they are really putting the work in order to address a lot of the challenges that they are dealing with. One of the inmates gave me the tour or walked me through the prison, and to see them, you know, moving forward, to see them gaining so much traction as it relates to their education and preparing to be re-entried into society is really important. So that being said, let's get to the hot topic here, because everyone is talking about your call for the dismissal of the YSL trial. For those who don't know, I'm going to enter a clip here.
Some new criticism, this time from the Republican nominee for Fulton County District Attorney, Courtney Kramer. Kramer is calling for the immediate dismissal of the case. She's accusing current Fulton County DA Fani Willis of using the trial for media attention rather than pursuing justice. In a statement posted on X, Kramer described the trial as disintegrating and criticized the prosecution for failing to meet legal standards. With ongoing delays, Kramer argues that the trial has strayed from its purpose and is undermining justice.
So there you have it. You see that there is a lot going on in Fulton County as it relates to this particular trial. From your vantage point, what are you seeing, Courtney, and why did you call for this trial to be dismissed?
So it's a great question. And about a week ago, I released a press release that I'm sure you can share with everyone. You guys can find it on my website as well, and my Twitter and all social media. But basically, I came out and said that Fani Willis needs to dismiss the YSL case. And that would actually be one of the first official acts that I do should I be elected. If you look at the history of this case, and this is for people who don't know, the Young Thug, the RICO case, the other RICO case besides the Trump case that's going on with the rapper Young Thug. This case has been going on for 3+ years. It's been the longest case in Fulton County history. The former DA, Paul Howard, in fact, he decided not to prosecute this case. And now we are seeing why. You have witnesses that are dishonest, that lie, have basically said they would lie on the stand to help protect their buddies or not protect their buddies or whatever it may be. You have a huge lack of evidence. And you also have what you're seeing right now is a lack of preparation by the assistant DAs who are on this case. And it's a long case. It's a huge case. It has 28 defendants, or, you know, it did at the time. Now there's about 6 left. Gosh, was it 181 something separate indictments, or, you know, acts in the indictment? It's huge.
Wow.
Definitely over prosecuted. But, you know, the problem is that now we're on the 3rd judge. Now Judge Paige Whitaker has the case. And basically what's happening is that judge, and then the investigators and the assistant DAs and the defense attorneys, that's all they're doing is this case. We have so many other cases that need to be prosecuted and need to go to trial, and that have, you know, hearings that need to be heard. And none of that's happening, you know, because they're all stuck on this case. Hundreds of thousands of dollars are being, in my opinion, now wasted on this case, because at the end of the day, if you've watched this from start to finish, you know, I haven't watched it every day from start to finish, but, you know, it's very public. But no jury it doesn't seem like a jury is going to convict the rest of these defendants. That's the problem. So when you know you have lack of evidence, you've been admonished, your ADAs have been admonished, you know, for, you know, the last 3 years for lack of preparation, lack of knowing, you know, certain rules of evidence that are imperative to, you know, seeking justice. You shouldn't still have this case. She needs to dismiss this case. I 100% would do that. You know, if you have a foolproof case, then that's what you bring. But this case was brought purely to bring her fame. And I believe that. And, you know, I know people are like, well, some of the crimes they did were very violent. Yes, I understand that. The problem is that you might think that what they did, or, you know, think that they'll be convicted. But at this point, it's very clear that a jury's not going to hold them accountable at all. So we need to figure out a different way to, you know, bring justice to the victims, figure out a different way to spend our taxpayer dollars. And it doesn't need to be on this YSL case in any way, shape, or form. And, you know, I'll say it again, but this case was not about the people of Fulton County. This case was purely about Fani Willis. And so that's, you know, one of the main reasons I decided at that time, you know, to call upon the dismissal of this case. It needs to be said. And if you go read Twitter, you know, if anyone has spare time to go read Twitter and read comments, of course I did. You know, a huge outpouring in the community. They were like, you know, she might be a Republican, but I completely agree. You know, and that's something that's, like I said, this isn't a political job. It's not a political position. And the statement I made about, you know, dismissing that case was not political at all. And it needs to happen immediately.
No, you said some things that I didn't even know was going on, and just from a different perspective too, because I didn't think about the fact that there are so many attorneys that are working on this and so many people that could be working on other cases. That's a whole other issue. And you talk about mismanagement of your team. That being said, you know, I just saw the snippet of when I think it's Young Thug's attorney found out that the judge and somebody else had like a private meeting. And I mean, I'm being honest, it looks really ghetto. As I am watching these cases, I'm like, who is running what? I mean, this is embarrassing. So sometimes you have to just say, good, look, he served time. I'm assuming Young Thug has been in jail this whole time. So now that's a whole other issue, right? And then on top of that, we have, you know, like you said, there's not sufficient evidence. You pretty much know what the outcome is going to be. So why don't we just release and stop spending money? It just makes more sense, you know? So for you, how do you plan on, let's say the case is dismissed, are we going to monitor and just to make sure that they don't go back to maybe making some of the decisions that they've made in the past? Or do you feel like that's just something that we have to kind of put to the side right now and focus on what's in front of us?
Yeah, I would have to say I would have to hold off on making a comment about that just until and if I even get to that point. Just because I don't want to say necessarily what I would do once I said I would dismiss the case, because I did say that. I'm not backtracking on that, but I think that, you know, it's going to be different once I get into that position to see everything that the state does have. I don't know what they have. I don't know what all evidence they have. All I do know is what the public can see, and from the public perspective, you know, that's why, of course, I made my statement. But there's got to be different ways for us to hold these kinds of people, not these kinds of people, but to hold people accountable in different ways if there is insufficient evidence, or, you know. And there's a lot of issues with this case just in general. You know, they want to use rap lyrics against Young Thug. That's a whole First Amendment issue, and they were definitely have to be a big investigation, honestly, into this whole case. once I get to that office. But that's kind of what I'll say about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of Democrats who are against the whole idea of using rap lyrics. And it's funny because I was speaking to an artist one time and he asked me a question about January 6th and Trump and some of the stuff he said. And I said, well, would you want to be held accountable for the actions of others based off of your lyrics? And he was just kind of like, oh, but that's the truth, right? I mean, at the end of the day, people have to make their own decisions. And you can't say because I read this in a book or I heard this in a song that now I lost control of my own decisions. That's just not how it works. Okay, so I want to do something fun really quick. I love my little segment, Would You Rather? It's actually my mom's favorite segment. And this is where I'm just going to ask you some very basic questions and you just tell me what you prefer. And these are not, they're not gotcha questions and they're not political or anything like that. These are all fun. And then once we finish this, I want to close with you sharing how people can follow you, how they can get to know you better, and any other closing remarks. So, all right, you ready? Thank you so much for joining the show. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you'll be notified every time I upload new content. Now back to the discussion.
Ready.
All right. So first question, would you rather achieve career success at the cost of your personal life or have a fulfilling personal life at the expense of your career?
Oh God, Janelle, that's a horrible question. I'd rather have a very successful career and personal life.
I know, this is so hard.
The lawyer in me wants to be like, well, Janelle, it depends on what that career is and like what classifies as like career success. No, I think that it's important. As I am young and starting my career and just kind of getting my feet wet and a lot of this stuff, your personal life is so important. And you know this, especially when you're, running for office or you're the wife of a candidate who is running for office. Having your personal life, that is, you have to have that before you have anything else, because otherwise your career is going to be absolutely miserable. And no one wants that. And that makes you a horrible worker. And then it makes you unsuccessful. So I think that I would definitely go with the personal life.
Me too. I feel the same reason, right? I just feel like you can't really be successful if your personal life is not strong and intact. So, okay. All right. These are not as hard. The next ones. Okay. Would you rather have lunch with Eleanor Roosevelt or Margaret Thatcher?
Probably Eleanor Roosevelt. Why not? I don't know. I kind of want to have lunch. Like I said, the lawyer in me wants to be like both. Why can't I have them both at the table? I don't know. I just think that Eleanor Roosevelt would be. I think she'd be interesting. I think that'd be entertaining. But so would Margaret Thatcher. Let's be honest.
I know. Okay. All right. Next question. Would you rather be able to predict future industry trends or have the ability to avoid all professional mistakes?
Oh, I think I would rather predict industry trends for sure. Yeah. Because I feel like you kind of have to make some professional mistakes to an extent to kind of learn, just to learn and grow. And that's normal. I think that kind of also humbles you to an extent, down the road. And that's part of life. You got to make mistakes and then you learn and then you grow and then, you meet people along the way. And I think that's kind of, something that you have to have happen. But predicting industry trends would be super cool. I don't know if that would be like legal to an extent, if you think about it, we're talking about like stock market trends and stuff like that. But
I hear you.
Yeah, only used for good.
Okay. All right. Last question on the Would You Rather. Would you rather experience a day in the life of a Victorian era queen or a Renaissance artist?
Oh, a queen for sure. For sure. I mean, that's like art, cool. Like it.
I know, right?
Fine, but like, no, definitely the queen.
It's funny, when I wrote that question, I laughed a little bit because I was like, I think I know the answer, because I feel like it would be the exact same answer as mine. Like, yes, definitely the Victorian Queen, right? Who would want to see what that's like?
It'd be so much fun. And then people calling you queen, you know, come on. We would, yeah.
I love it. I love it. Okay.
Great question.
So, all right. Well, I love adding that in because it helps people to get to know you on a more of a personal level. And I really want you to close by just sharing your last thoughts and letting people know how they can follow you, get in touch with you, and follow this campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. My closing thoughts with this, this race is really not about, it's not about right versus left. And that's what the ballot will say, because it has to say that. But it's really about right versus wrong. And I think that what the people in Fulton County have seen has just been a series of wrongs. And we've really got to change the trajectory of Fulton County, and we've got to have some rights. We've got some wins, and we got to have some wins for the people of Fulton County, not just the DA herself. And I think that, when you go to the ballot box in November or early voting starting October 15th, think about what's happened the last 4 years in Fulton County. Do you want another 4 years of that? Do you want another 4 years, a total mockery of the legal profession? Of course I don't. As a young lawyer, you're supposed to look up to your DAs and trust them and entrust, when you go vote for them, that they are going to advocate for you and not for themselves. It's really about right versus wrong, not right versus left in this race. And I think Fulton's time for a change. I know we haven't had a Republican DA, and I don't know when the last time we had one was, but we haven't had one qualify since at least 1972. So I think that if we really want to see change, we really want to see a safer Fulton County, we really got to vote differently at the ballot box come November. But to follow my campaign, you can go to CourtneyKramer.com, Courtney with a C, Kramer with a K. You have to specify that. Not a Kardashian over here, but yeah. And then Twitter is Kramer for GA, so Georgia Kramer for GA. Instagram is May It Please the Court. And so go to my website, sign up, get involved, volunteer. We're going to have, this will be a grassroots campaign. Fulton County is so large, like I said, one of the largest counties. So all hands on deck. And I hope that you guys will keep in touch on my website and receive our newsletters about events coming up and door knocking and phone banking and fundraisers and all the things. So once again, that is CourtneyKramer.com.
Well, thank you so much, Courtney. And for those of you who are watching, you can go straight to the description box and click the link. Her website will be right there. So it'll be easy access to everything. If you want to help, make sure you help. Get on the ground, tell your neighbors. I feel like if one person decided that they can talk to at least 10 people, it will go so far. Just share why you're supporting Courtney, why others should support her, and then spread the word. At this point in time, we've got to fix what's happening in Fulton County. People deserve to live in a safe environment. So thank you so much, Courtney, for joining the show. We would love to have you back as we get closer to the election day and make sure that people are continuing to spread the word. And I'll definitely be helping and doing my part.
Thanks, Janelle. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right. You have a great day.